Not at all. So there was nobody I could really look to in my family with a scientific background. I was drawn to science and maths at school, for sure. And I guess when you kind of are drawn to a particular area of interest, then you seek out more opportunities. And so was definitely kind of following scientific discovery programs on the TV. And actually, one of the things that I remember at school was during history, actually, we had a really interesting course on the history of medicine. So we were studying medical discoveries through history, and that was just real. Gave a real inspiration into that whole process of scientific and medical discovery and the importance of those discoveries. I first had the chance to get into kidney research when I was a good way through my training as a paediatrician. So had come out of medical school and gone into clinical training, still with that intention to go back to research if there was an opportunity, because I'd really enjoyed the time at medical school. But I did have that formal opportunity when I was probably about 2/3 of the way through my clinical training as a paediatrician. And that was an opportunity to do a PhD. So a 3-year focused full-time period of study. And that's when I started studying kidney cells and these very special cells that we know are important in Alport syndrome, the podocytes. And then after my PhD, I moved up to Manchester, where there has been a long-standing interest in what we call the matrix, extracellular matrix. So it's all the kind of scaffolding structures that are so important in our tissues and organs. And so there's a cell matrix centre in Manchester, and that's where I started working. And I then had an opportunity to focus more on and understand more about basement membranes. And basement membranes are really important in Alport syndrome. And one of the main components of basement membranes is type 4 collagen. And so actually bringing my interest in the kidney together with matrix, then basement membrane research was a really sensible and important focus for my team as it started to grow. Research funding is so crucial, and the support that we had from the Alport Syndrome Foundation really enabled us to actually try something different, something that we hadn't done in my lab before, and that was to work with kidney organoids. So we teamed up with Melissa Little's group in Melbourne in Australia, and Melissa's group had developed the protocols to grow these very specialized kidney organoids from stem cells. So they're amazing structures. They start off as stem cells, and then over a period of just over 3 weeks, you can, by treating the cells with different chemicals and growth factors, you can get the cells to self-organize into kidney structures, and that's quite an amazing feat, really. So the project that was supported by the Alport Syndrome Foundation really gave us the opportunity in my lab to work with kidney organoids. And what we wanted to know was whether these structures made their own basement membranes. And that's what we found, that they do, that they make fairly sophisticated basement membranes. And that then opened up the opportunity to use this system to understand more about how cells coordinate their actions to make their own matrix and basement membranes. And so the work that was supported by the ASF then really helped this work to get off the ground in my lab, and it has primed funding from other sources as well. It was really important work and support from the foundation that has launched a new avenue of activity in my group. The hub has a physical base in my lab in Manchester, and what we're able to use there is a platform of experimental systems that we've established over the last 10 years to help us understand more about Alport syndrome. And so I've already mentioned the kidney organoids, and so actually the work that we did with the ASF project was a really key component feeding into this much I guess more substantial funding award over 5 years. So it's a 5-year program with the Alport Hub. And so we will use the different experimental systems we have, the kidney organoids, which are a human cell. It's a human cell system. We've also developed a zebrafish system to be able to study basement membranes and Alport syndrome defects. And we have mice. So mice are a really good experimental model for understanding how the disease progresses in Alport syndrome. And so we have these variety, a toolbox, if you like, a variety of experimental systems that we can use. And so this is a large part of the activity that we're undertaking in Manchester. And we'll work together with partners in industry who have new treatments that they want to understand more about, and use our expertise in understanding basement membranes and Alport syndrome to evaluate those potential treatments. So to do those really important early studies that help to give us confidence that new treatments have potential. So that's one exciting aspect of the work that we're already doing, and we've had a lot of interest from industry partners who want to work together with us on those projects. And then the other major aspect of the Alport Research Hub is what we call the virtual hub, and that's where we're going to work more closely with human data, actually. So we have a registry of patients with Alport syndrome in the UK. It's called the RADAR registry. And what we have through the hub is an opportunity to understand how the disease, how Alport syndrome progresses in different individuals, and to do some much more substantial analysis of the genetic factors that might influence that. So we're planning to do whole genome sequencing in patients within the Alport RADAR registry. So I think that's a really exciting project, and really gives an opportunity for us to coordinate Alport research and look for potential genetic risk factors from a large number of individuals. We have such a fantastic and supportive community, and that feels as though that gives a lot of support. I think the other aspect that I would highlight is that it certainly feels like now is the time for great progress. I think there have been a lot of important technological developments in techniques that we can use to really make significant advances in Alport research. But what we absolutely need is to continue to expand that diversity of expertise. So there are challenges ahead in terms of thinking about some of the major advances. If we wanted, for example, to correct the faulty genes in Alport syndrome, there's lots of hurdles along that particular road. But the more people and the more expertise that we bring in from different settings, the more likely we are to be able to overcome those challenges to tackle not only the kidney, but also the hearing and the eye problems in Alport syndrome. It does feel as though it's a really exciting time to be in the field, and I think we should be excited about the prospect for major advances in treatment in the next 5 years. I think if we'd have been having this conversation 5 years ago, I wouldn't have said the same thing. I think there does feel as though there has been an acceleration, and there is, real interest in focusing on developments in kidney disease generally, glomerular disease, and Alport syndrome. So I think there is definitely an important focus, and I would say what we need to do is kind of maintain the important collaborations that we have, actually, I think, fairly uniquely within the Alport community. Thanks very much to the the huge efforts of patient organisations, that we have this collaborative international collaborative grouping. I think it's important for us to maintain our connections and communication channels so that we can keep up with the developments. There's lots of different avenues that are being explored, and I think you can broadly classify those in terms of new treatments, bringing in better treatments for Alport syndrome, whether that's for the kidney disease or for hearing or for eye problems. Then I think you can classify that as treatments that would be directed at correcting the genetic defect, and then another group of treatments that are directed at extending the function of particularly kidneys for longer and longer periods of time. And I think in terms of the patient involvement, and it's wonderful to have such an active international patient community. I think it's important from your side to continue to ask us the questions, what's going on, and to bring in your diverse perspectives, because actually we work far better if we're working as a team, and that we can from the science and research perspective, it's our duty and our obligation to explain where things are up to and what the opportunities and challenges are ahead. I think that would be outdoors. My husband and I have 2 children, twins. You can't really call them children now. They were 21 this year, so we certainly like to keep up with them. And I guess from a kind of an activity point of view, running is a big passion of mine, so I take on various challenges, and it's also actually. Running and being outdoors is a great thinking time, I find. So it serves 2 purposes. It's healthy, but it's also a good time to kind of think through some of those more difficult issues that we might have with particular experiments or research questions or whatever. So it's good thinking time too.